I see the numbers still ticking up. Folks are joining, so welcome. Good morning to those of you who are also on the West Coast here in the US, but good evening or afternoon or wherever you're joining from. We appreciate you being here. We have a pretty full agenda for today's call, and it looks like the first four agenda items all come from Steve. So I'll
Yes.
pass it over to him in just a second. I just made this announcement, but I'll just make it again, which is that the RFC issue where you can post questions and topics and demos is in the chat, and then feel free to use the chat, use the hand raise feature, however you'd like to interact throughout today's call. And with that, I will pass things over to Steve.
Yes. And I don't think I'll take that much time on most of these. Maybe a little bit more time on the fourth one. So the working group update. So, and by the way, we thanks to Ryan, aka Killisuit, for putting a bunch of topics he wanted to get covered. So I'm trying to cover most of these. So as far as working groups, I feel like the working groups are doing a pretty good job triaging a lot of the issues. I guess the only update is we recently added Matthias, aka IS Reset Me, to the working groups. So I don't have any, and maybe that's something we could see if we can produce in the future. Because I think if the working groups are following the process and adding the right labels, we might be able to get some data out of it and maybe add it to a dashboard or something like that. So I know Steven's taking notes, so just take a note for yourself on that one. So that's kind of like the only update I have on the working group. So those are still alive and running, and it actually kind of goes right into the next topic, which is Community Day. So Mikey Lombardi, I don't know if he's here right now, but he brought up a great topic with the team since he joined Microsoft. And basically the idea of Community Day is it's an internal thing, but basically, one of the challenges we've had, especially on the PowerShell project being the biggest project that we have on the team, we have a lot of different other projects, right? But that's the biggest one. We have like over 3,000 issues. I think it's over 80 PRs right now, which is actually down the number of PRs. Like we've kind of managed that a little bit, but we're still like not able to provide, a regular feedback or acknowledgement on some of the community contributions, which I would feel really bad about. Like one of the oldest PRs is like 2018, I think. So the purpose of Community Day is really to say every Monday, the folks on the PowerShell project, and we're going to start with that, and we'll see if we need to expand it if necessary. I think the other smaller projects actually have a pretty good cadence. But the idea is like on every Monday, we're going to focus time on that day to really review, the engineers review pull requests, and then the PMs are really helping out triaging or at least labeling issues so that the working groups know which ones they need to focus on, right? So in that regard, hopefully people can see that we're going to up our activity on Mondays. That doesn't mean that people on the team don't review or respond on other days of the week. It just means that we're dedicating Monday to kind of do this effort, so that hopefully we can make more progress on some of the community PRs, get those in and things like that. So hopefully people start seeing some efforts there. We only just started it this week, so it's going to take a few efforts to see how we can improve that and keep that going forward. So, all right, roadmap update. So let me share my screen. This is referring to the blog post I made last March, which is only a few months ago, actually, if you think about it. All right, I think this is the right screen. All right, so I don't know why Teams likes to minimize what's in front. All right. So this is referring to this blog post I did early March, which is, these were the things we had planned to invest time on by the team, specifically on the PowerShell OpenSSH projects for the duration of basically 2022. And I just want to give a quick update where we are on a lot of these things. So I'm just going to go from top to bottom. I'm not going to read these. You guys, this is a blog which you can just read yourself. I'm hoping people are familiar somewhat with all these headings. So the executive order, so this is by the White House. This is a big effort across Microsoft, and I'm sure a lot of other companies are trying to adhere to this as well. But this is a big effort for us because we have a ton of repos. Like even repos that are not active but are still maintained need to adhere. Basically, anything that's not archived or private. So this was a big effort, and I think we're meeting the requirements of the executive order at this point in time. But that was a big effort from basically the beginning of the calendar year to like April-ish, somewhere around that time frame. PowerShell 7.3. So we are continuing to make progress on that. I expect that we should have our next preview 4 either today, or if it doesn't happen today, we generally don't want to ship on Fridays, because if anything bad happens, then I don't want people to have to work or watch it on the weekend. So then it'll happen early next week. But I'm hopeful that it will get out later today. Anything else I need to cover there? Otherwise, the next one, we did move to .NET 7 as part of PowerShell 7.3 previews. So we're continuing to work closely with that team. I believe that we are at a point where we have a much better process in place where we can take regular previews from them and find issues so that we don't, like there's been a couple of times where we had to skip pulling a .NET 7 preview because we found basically blocking issues on our side that get reported, but there wasn't time for the .NET team to fix it within the same preview, so they have to fix it for the next one. But I think we got a much better cycle on that one. Local session configuration. There is a pull request out from Paul on this. It's a work in progress, I believe. So this one is in progress, and hopefully people can play with that. And I'll talk maybe more about like the action items as I get to the experimental features part of my agenda. Mariner is the Microsoft, you can call it Microsoft Linux, I guess. It's basically the Linux that Microsoft internal teams use if they have to host services and whatever on top of Linux. And recently, Travis on the team did add additional support for them so that PowerShell's on there. Custom connection info. This, I believe, I don't remember if it was merged yet, but I know that this PR was already created. There was also an RFC. So the idea here was really to enable the community to be able to help themselves with a lot of requests that we get in terms of extending like SSH remoting or doing like WSMAN remoting and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that we will have in the hopefully near future is a complete example around SSH remoting that people can use to build on top of. Even though that's part of PowerShell, we're going to hopefully separate that necessary part of code out just to show like if you're going to build your own thing, because I know there's a lot of interest in extending SSH that we don't necessarily want to do within the product. This should make it easier for those folks to do that. And yeah, I'll make sure I have my chat window in case questions come up. Okay, AMC is the echo. All right, Sydney, I'm going to trust you to mute folks as needed. I think you have that power. All right. So AMC as the anti-malware scan interface, I think is this S. And then WDAC is the Windows, this is what I forget. This is what used to be called Device Guard. I forget what the actual acronym stands for, but anyways, these are two security features in Windows. One is really about code integrity, WDAC, to have like a allow list. So you can only run these, executables from this path or if it's signed. And then AMC is really doing real-time scanning of PowerShell and other things as it's being run to see if it's detecting it as malware. So those two teams in Windows have been continuing to improve their product. And so because PowerShell has direct integration with both of these features, that we need to do additional work to leverage newer capabilities. So this will only people with newer version of Windows, and I don't think any of those newer versions of Windows are public yet, would see the benefits of this, but you'll see it in the future. And then the idea here is like this would not just be in PowerShell 7. I think we will probably work with the Windows PowerShell team to backport these. This is an interesting topic. PowerShell 7 in Windows. So, just so everyone knows, like this is always on top of my mind, and we've tried many different efforts, and it is a very hard problem to solve, primarily from a support perspective, but also from a size perspective, actually. So I think what I originally wrote here is not the direction. Let's see, what did I say? I want to make sure, because I went through different iterations of how we might be able to approach this. Okay, so the bootstrapper is definitely not something we're looking at anymore. Oh, the commandlet, yeah, I think we're still trying to pursue that approach. And again, I can't, there's no announcements, but this is something we're still working on, but I can't make any commitments of when or if this will happen. A lot of it is actually on the Windows side as well. All right, Windows ARM 64. So we don't have an ability, even though I mentioned MSI, like, all right, without going into the weeds of the details, basically the Wix toolset is what we use to produce MSIs, doesn't officially yet support building ARM 64 packages in production. So they have pre-production, they have like a beta that works. So in the interim, we have updated our winget package to use the MSIX bundle to install on ARM64. So if you have a Windows ARM64 device, you can use WinGit to install PowerShell 7 today. That's already, we're already publishing that, so that already works. All right, next one is Get What's New. So that repo is open. I don't think we've too much has happened there, but basically, you know, we already the doc team like Sean has already regularly produced documentation about what's new between different versions of Windows, not Windows, between PowerShell, and this is making it easier for users to kind of discover what new things are coming in. So that work is still happening. Completion or completer predictor. This is already published. It's in its own repo, and it also serves as an example that I tweeted the other day on how to build your own predictor. And I recognize that we're not going to have like a ton of predictors, but for those who may be interested, that's one to look at as a way to build it. All right, module isolation. So I believe Dombo has already completed work that's merged into 7.3 to make it easier for module authors who require isolation. Basic isolation is where Cindy, I'm watching you throw things at your dog.
I'm
It's
really
cute.
sorry.
It's
I'm
fine.
just super
No,
distracted.
it's fine. It's just I see the motion out of the corner of my eye. Anyways, so isolation, yeah. So like the challenge here is for module authors who rely on a different version of an assembly that other modules or PowerShell itself uses, where you can't load different versions of the same assembly within the default assembly load context, basically. So we will have, I think Dombo had already updated. I know he updated some changes in PowerShell itself to make it easier for module authors, and I think we already have some documentation published as well for anyone who cares about this situation. Okay, Mac OS notarization. This may not make it because it's just a long process, and I'll be honest, I think it's a little bit lower priority because anyone who is on Mac today knows how to install PowerShell, even though we're not notarized. So that's more of a nice to have right now. PowerShell Get 3. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about that, I think, at the next community call, but this is still an ongoing project. We're still very active on it. I think that one of the reasons we have not been able to get as much done on that is really related to Below, which is PowerShell Gallery. We had a number of incidents on the gallery, and it's the same team of engineers working on both of these. So the gallery being in production and being depended on by customers and partners is a higher priority. But we are making progress on PowerShell Get 3. VS Code extension, obviously, hopefully everyone saw, like, I think we talked about that last community call, you know, we'd have that really big change moving towards the new stable release, which addresses like basically, in my opinion, the top concern, which is reliability and stability of the extension. We'll continue to, you know, look at issues that get raised as we enhance that, but the major work is complete on that one. All right, almost done. DSC3, as noted in here, the primary focus for this effort at this point in time is really for Azure guest configuration and potentially auto manage. These are both Azure features. So the repo itself has been made open, although I think we're not taking contributions at this point in time. It's just there's a lot of effort for us to review those things. But work will continue to happen on here. But again, the focus is really on the Azure side for now. Crescendo, that was G8 already. So that's done. I don't think I need to mention anything more there, but I do see a lot of activity and like YouTube videos and stuff like that on Crescendo. So that's pretty amazing. We'd love to continue to hear more success stories or see more modules published to the gallery that have the Crescendo tag, so we know that, you know, those are using this capability, so we know whether or not to continue to invest in it or not. Okay, Platypus is really primarily for doc generation. So this is where it's used internally, but can also be used externally, where basically you author your PowerShell commandlet documentation in Markdown, and it'll generate the mammal. I hope that at some point we don't need this because we can just have PowerShell consume Markdown natively, but that's not in the near-term roadmap. All right, finally, OpenSSH. So we continuously update OpenSSH in Windows, but obviously the customer won't see that until the next release of Windows, unless you're on the insider builds, and you'll see more early. However, we do publish the most recent one, which is considered preview, so it's not officially supported on GitHub, and we now have MSI packages thanks to Heath Stewart's work. So we'll continue to do that. And again, as there's new features and capabilities and versions and patching whatever in OpenSSH, we always continuously update that into Windows. It's just that because of the way Windows releases, it just happens slower. All right, so I think I covered everything there. Let me just see if there were any questions. Okay. I don't see anything questions for me, at least that hasn't been answered or responded to. So, okay, so the last one is experimental features. Okay, so this is where I'm going to do some demos. All right, as you can see, I'm actually already running preview 4, so sorry for you guys. But this is just maybe like a reminder and a call to action, like, you know, as we're leveraging this experimental feature in PowerShell. The way that we need the community is to provide feedback on these features so that we can make a call later on before we get to release candidate, whether an experimental feature is ready to be non-experimental, become stable. Or the alternative might be, hey, this experimental feature has proven to not be as useful, or maybe not designed the way we want, and maybe we just remove it altogether, right? So there's a couple of different options. Or it could just be, hey, maybe we need more bake time, we need more feedback, and it stays experimental throughout the next release as well, or into the next release. So what I want to do now is just kind of go through some of these so that people are aware of what these things are. Again, on any preview build, all the experimental features by default are enabled. However, there's a caveat that is not obvious and something we should try to fix in the future. Basically, if you had ever run something like this, or if you had run disable, right? So what will happen if you do either of these things is that it will create what's called a PowerShell config JSON in your user profile. So the way it works today is that when PowerShell starts up, it's going to look for this PowerShell config JSON, and if it finds it in your user profile, it's going to read that one and not read the one that gets shipped in PS Home. All right, so I go into PS Home here. So there's PowerShell config JSON, the top one. And the way it works today is that it basically just lists all the features, and if it's in this list, it is enabled. All right, so it's again, the key point I'm trying to get across for folks in the past who may have deliberately or accidentally created your own PowerShell config JSON in your user profile is that takes precedence. And the way it's currently designed, which I want to change, is that you can see like in this list, there's no enable or disable. Basically, it's if it's in the list, it's enabled. If it's not in the list, it's disabled. So what that means is if you had enabled an older version of PowerShell with features, it would enable all of those that exist in that time. And then a newer version of PowerShell comes out, and it'll see that these new experimental features are not in that list, and those will be disabled. Right. So even if you install a newer preview, if you install a clean preview, then all the features that get enabled by default, these will all be true. But if you have ever created one of these yourself by accident or on purpose, then any new stuff that shows up will not be enabled because it won't be in that list. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So the way to fix that is you can just, let's see, if I were to do this real quick, let me just create this myself. I can just do, I think let's do PS Boom Block. And then I'm going to enable it, experimental feature. And so now I believe it is going to be under, well, it's different on Windows and I'm on a MacBook, but I believe, where is this thing? Okay, so I have a couple, oh, that's in my downloads. I don't want to be in my downloads. Is it like data or no, it's config. If I can type it right. Okay, PowerShell. Okay, so not here. All right, now this is where I should have spent more time remembering. Unless someone happens to just post it real quick to the chat window, I'm gonna have a hard time finding this thing. But anyways, it is somewhere under your home directory. If you just delete that, then you'll get the default configuration that we ship with PowerShell. All right. So anyways, getting back to what I wanted to actually spend time on is not talking about that. I want to talk about the actual individual features. Okay. So this first one is related to the other thing that we had in our our investments blog post, right? This is the AMC improvements. So again, most of you will probably won't be able to see any difference because you're not on the newest version, I think Windows 11, that would have this capability. Let's talk about the next one instead. So ANSI rendering file info. So if I just go into, let's go into the PowerShell repo. Oh, is this, I don't know why this is so slow for me right now. This is where the risk of running a demo live. Is that, why is CD taking a while? All right, let me just open a new window. I have been having problems on macOS, so I'm going to blame macOS here.
Hey now.
Oh, okay. That's weird. All right. Oh, there's a bug somewhere. Someone's creating a folder with a backslash. Anyways, this feature is basically highlighting or providing color to some well-defined things. So it's all customizable. So if you go to file info here, you can see like directories have this default color. Of course, you can change it yourself. Symbolic links, which I don't have in here, it will be this light blue color, and then executables will be green, which is I don't have any executables in this folder. And then all these extensions are also there. So like for example, if you don't want color, then you can always do something like this. Say I don't want color for directory, just make it an empty string, and then this will not have any color. Or if you wanted to say you want JSON files to have color, info extension, just add, and this is a hash table. So I can do .json, and I can do paste style background. Let's make this blue, and I want it also, let's say, italic, and I also want it bold. Right, and then now all these JSON files are in the declaration that I specified. So again, please try that out and give feedback both for the default color choices, and I know that there has been some discussion on that, as well as customization and stuff like that. So quickly, I don't want to take up too much more time here. All right, let me clean. I'm gonna go to the clean block real quick because this was started from Joel Salo, I believe. I'm gonna go to my test folder. So basically, what this allows is normally if you have like a script function, then you have begin, process, and end. What this enables is actually this additional clean block, because I think a lot of people don't understand like end is not guaranteed to be called. And the way I'm going to demo this is I have this here. So first off, if I just run this directly, you'll see that begin gets called once, process gets called for each of the inputs from the pipeline, and then end gets called because this one ended cleanly, if you will. And then cleanup gets called. Now I have to do write verbose instead of just outputting because the cleanup block deliberately will basically throw away output, okay, by design. So now if I do the other one to show select, if I choose just two of these and basically it's going to now kill the pipeline after selection, then n will not get called. Now the first one is going to be 0, I guess. Well, this is actually a little bit interesting. Why did it not do 2? That's a different problem. In any case, cleanup still get called. Jim, were you saying something?
Yeah, it's because you emit begin, so it selects the first 2 lines, output lines.
Oh,
So
is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have put it somewhere. Okay, but you get the idea. So yeah, so it's actually selecting the output lines and not because it's selecting the output here, not the output from 1 to 5. So that's the clean block. So again, we would love to get some people to kind of play with that to see if that, the idea there is really like if you have to close a network connection or database connection or delete temporary files, that's where you would do it. Because otherwise, before you have to have all these try finalies throughout your script. All right, without going too much more time, the only one I want to maybe cover is psexec. So this adds a switch process commandlet where exec is an alias to it, and this is primarily useful on non-Windows. In fact, I think on Windows we probably don't even have this because it doesn't make sense. So on Linux and macOS, execd is the API very commonly used, and so you'll see a lot of scripts that expect the exec built-in command to exist. And what it really does is it basically starts a new process that replaces the current process. So if I were to actually run this like here, so it starts bash. I forgot to do one part of this demo to show the process ID. Yeah, let me. Oh yeah, so it came back. Okay, so let me try this again. So this is currently 25271, and so do this, and then now I have to reset because echo, and then now Jim, can you remind me how to get the process ID?
Yeah, just do PS.
Oh, that's right.
There's another way to do it, which is echo $. Yeah, echo $. Also.
All right. Anyways, you can see like it's the same process ID because it basically replaced that process with replace my PowerShell process with bash, right? So that's exactly what the behavior you would expect with exec. And if I exit this, then it's going to exit my terminal. because that was the last process. So anyways, so again, just to summarize, the call to action is please use these experimental features. Please make sure they're enabled by looking in your profile to see if you have this little PowerShell configuration on this inadvertently disabling a bunch of experimental features. And do give us that feedback sooner than later, so it'll help us make decisions later on as we get closer to release candidate, which ones we want to make sense to remove from stable and from experimental to stable. All right, I'm done.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for all of that, Stephen. I think the best way to give feedback on the experimental features is probably to open up a GitHub issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, what I think, actually, I'll just add one more thing. What I'll probably also do is, because issues usually only report problems and they don't report success, I will probably also open up a discussion. The way I'm just brainstorming now, I'll list out all of them individually, and if something just works for you, if you like it, just give it a thumbs up, because it also gives us information that people are using it and that we don't need to necessarily make changes. All right.
Yeah, that's great. And then with that, I will pass things over to Jason, who's going to give a little quick summary update on PowerShell Summit, which we had just the other week, and just kind of general community update.
Thanks, Sydney. Hey, everyone. I literally just got back from a couple of conferences, and so my head's still a little swimming from the travel and all the gunk and all that kind of stuff. But I have to tell you, we had a great time recently at the PowerShell Summit North America. And I want to thank the organizers and all of the attendees. About, I think, around 140 of you physically attended in person. This was a great opportunity, not only for us to be able to show up and talk about PowerShell and a lot of the current work that we've been doing, things like that. But what most important to all of us is being able to show up and have conversations with you. And it was a wonderful opportunity for us, all of the PMs that were there, Sydney and Stephen and Danny. We all enjoyed having those conversations. And we got a lot of information from those conversations. Keep in mind, PowerShell is built as a tool for your uses, our uses, all of our uses. And so this was a wonderful opportunity to be able to sit down over lunch and just chat about how you're using PowerShell, what kind of places where you're having problems. Are there places where we need to work more on the sacred vow to make sure that PowerShell is enabling you and empowering you to do those solutions? So really, the biggest takeaway we had was it was great to see everyone after 3 years and talk about PowerShell. And I'll open up the floor to any of the other PMs as well that want to talk about it. But Summit this year was a great opportunity for us all to get back together and get re-engaged. And it was very exciting for all of us. We came back with a lot of useful information. So thank you to everyone that came to the summit and took the time to chat with us. And I noticed Justin Grody is here. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he was on the winning team for Iron Scripter, as you would expect. So Justin, congratulations. That was awesome, by the way. And also we had a great time seeing a lot of wonderful presentations. Learned a lot of things from those presentations. Also, just to mention, I recently just attended a PowerShell Firehose conference. The reason I bring it up is probably the last PowerShell class or conference that Don Jones will be doing as he's retiring from PowerShell. But him and James Petty did a wonderful job of taking PowerShell IT administrators to the next level, showing them the expert ways that they can work with PowerShell. Met a lot of brand new friends, and I hope some of them are on the call today and will join us on the call and will continue to give us feedback about some of the things that we're doing in PowerShell. And one last note, Sydney and I are just now sitting down and getting ready for a very exciting conference that we're going to go to. And a shout out to Gail and the organizers of PowerShell Conf EU at the end of next month, at the end of June. We are so excited to go to this conference and see everybody in Europe. Again, we haven't seen folks in about 3 years, and it's an exciting opportunity to communicate. And I would encourage everybody that's going to the European conference, besides going to the sessions, take some time and sit down with us and chat with us. Let us know what you're working on and what PowerShell is doing good for you so that we don't change that. And tell us also where you're having some problems so that we can kind of think about those, chat with you about those, and see if there's some work that we can do there for you. So looking forward to seeing everyone. And just a big shout out to the community overall. Remember, You don't always have to go to GitHub and file an issue. You can also reach out to us directly. You can reach out to us in these community calls. We look forward to chatting with you and what we can learn from you. So thanks for everyone for attending those conferences. And Sydney, I tell you what, this is going to be a lot of fun when we go to Europe. And yeah, I'm just really excited. Thanks, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Like Jason mentioned, it was a lot of fun seeing you all at Summit. I'm excited to see folks in Europe in a few weeks. And then I also wanted to mention that if you aren't quite able or ready for whatever reason to attend in-person conferences or see people in person, we're still excited to engage with you. Jason and I put together a session for Build, which is going to be next week. It's free and virtual to attend for everyone. And then if you do have user groups or other ways that you virtually like to connect, do reach out to us and we'd be happy to engage with you. I also see that Ryan has his hand raised, and I wanted to pass it over to Ryan to give a little update from community stuff on his side.
So thank you, Sydney. We had on Tuesday the first in-person meetup of the London PowerShell user group at the Microsoft Reactor in London. I expected we'd have a dropout of about 60%. We didn't. We had 85 to 90% of the attendees that signed up turn up, and we had people on the street who looked in and saw what we were doing come in as well. So that was really good. We are looking at doing a PS Day UK event again at some point later on in the year. We haven't yet discussed that in depth, so more to come on that in the next couple of months. But the user groups are starting to kick back up in person, and we will do remote stuff as well. We weren't able to do a hybrid one with this first one because some of the equipment wasn't quite working, but we will do. And that's just what I wanted to say. It was just great to see people in person after all this time.
Yeah, thanks for that update. That's great to hear. And just if other folks have things they'd like to share about PowerShell community events going on in their neck of the woods, don't hesitate to let us know. I will pass things over to Sean now, who's going to give us a little docs update.
Howdy, folks. Just a reminder that PowerShell 7.1 ended support on May 8th. And to that end, it has been removed from the documentation. So I wanted to call that out. The next one is going to be PowerShell 7.0, ends in December. So we'll be retiring that content as well. What we have is I've updated the article here, differences between Windows PowerShell 5.1 and 7x, to include all of the 7.0 and 7.1 changes that were in those release notes. Also, if you go to the version picker here, there's an option for previous versions, and that takes you over to our archive site, and the 7.1 content can be found over here. But again, 7.1 is officially out of support. So if you're on 7.1, you need to be moving to 7.2. I wanted to point out a few things, building on some of the information that Steve was talking about. We have this using experimental features article under the learning node of the TOC. And this documents all of these experimental features that he was talking about. So if you want more information about what they are and how to use them, we have added them there. And under scripting and development, we have this developing modern modules section, and we've added this new article about how to create a command line predictor with sample code. So, and I also just want to remind folks the utility modules up here takes you to our other doc site, and that's where we have the documentation for Crescendo and Script Analyzer and the secrets management modules. And that is it.
Awesome. Thanks as always for the update, Sean. With that, I believe I am actually the next agenda item. So I will be showing, I'm going to do a quick demo of the credential persistence feature that is in PowerShell Get 3. It's going to be coming out in the next preview, which I hope to see out next week, but will be coming soon. But wanted to give a quick demo of this feature. This is actually a community contributed feature, and it's been a long-standing request. So I'll just show y'all quick how it works. We're still definitely looking for feedback on this feature. It's in the early preview stage, but we'll take a look at it. So for this demo, I'm going to show getting this package in my Artifactory feed. However, this can work with any number of feeds that are compatible with PowerShell. So with this, I'm going to show how you can register your repository and provide the credential at registration time. And then the credential will be pulled when you go to make install, update, find calls. So you don't need to provide the credential each time. That's what we mean by credential persistence. So you can see if I run get ps resource repository, right now I have 2 repositories registered. I have PowerShell Gallery, default one, and then I also have an Azure DevOps feed registered. This feature also works with Azure DevOps, but as I mentioned today, I'm going to show registering it with Artifactory. So the way the credential persistence feature works in PowerShell Get is it takes advantage of secret management. So you can use it with any secret vault that you have registered. For this demo, I'm going to use a secret store vault. I just have it called SS or secret store, just a basic secret store vault. For more information on those, I can link some docs once I'm finished, and this will be coming out in blog form as well. So I have my secret vault, and then in my secret vault, if I run get secret info, I can see my secrets and my secret metadata. I'm going to run this on my JFrog cred, which is my credential for my Artifactory feed. I've already gone ahead and saved this credential into my secret store. You'll notice that it's of type PS credential. Right now, PS credential is the only secret type that's supported with this feature. However, we are investigating supporting all types of secrets that are available in secret management. But for now, I have my JFrog cred. It's a PS credential, and I have it saved in my secret store. So what I'm going to need to do is create a credential info object. And with this, I just pass in the name of the vault and the name of the secret. So if I run that, I have my, let's see, what just happened there? That's weird. Well, we will, that's weird. Try that. So now I have my credential info object, and now I can go ahead and register my repository, my PS resource repository. So I'm going to give it a friendly name. I just called it Artifactory. In V3, you just need to provide a single URI, and you'll notice that I have it as a V3 feed. We do have V3 support in PowerShell Get V3 previews. I'm going to mark it as trusted because I'm putting everything in there, so it's a bit curated for me. And then I'm going to pass in credential info and that credential info object. So let's try running that, and I think I don't know what's happening there. That's okay. We will do the old copy and paste method. All right, so now clear that. Get PS resource repository. You'll see that I now have my Artifactory one registered as well. Now if I run find PS resource, name is get hello is the name of my module. I'll pass in my repository Artifactory, although I don't necessarily need to do that. And you can see that I authenticated, was able to find the module and without needing to provide a credential. In the past, you would have needed to provide a credential at the find call as well. And then the same thing will work with install. I'm going to do install PS resource, get hello. I'm going to use the reinstall parameter because I have already installed this module in this version before. You'll see that it's installing. If I run a command on this, whoops, I need to do list available. Awesome. You'll see that it's installed. So pretty simple interface at this point in time, but gives you a little sense of how the system is going to work. As I mentioned, Doesn't have to be Artifactory. Also doesn't have to be Secret Store. It can be wherever you like to store your secrets. And with that, I believe I'm passing things over to Travis to give another update.
Hello, let me pull everything up. I'm not going to be sharing anything. I'm just going to be talking. I'll make sure I have all my notes. So first, I'm going to be talking about the distribution support we've been adding. For 7.2.4, we added Ubuntu 22.04 support. There were some packaging changes required there. Anom helped with a lot of this. It'll be coming out in the next preview as well. So once that's done, we should have it for all of the versions that are going to support that. Additionally, we've been moving over to using the Red Hat's universal base image containers to doing Red Hat testing. We've onboarded their 8.4 container, and we're in the process of onboarding their 9 container. There are some issues with 9 that need to be fixed in .NET. There's a workaround. So if you're moving in that direction, you might want to take a pause until .NET can fix something. The Mariner is probably the biggest thing we're adding support for. The preview will contain the first Mariner packages. The packages will be framework dependent, meaning we will not ship the framework, and you'll have to install the .NET runtime package for that distro. This will make our packages smaller, and it'll reduce the requirement to do security updates, because most of our security problems are in the .NET runtime. That's about it. Were there any questions that come up while I was talking about?
Thanks, Travis. I didn't see any questions come up, but there might still be some that come through. But thanks for that update. Alrighty. We are at the last agenda item. So I did see a few questions pop up throughout, but do keep thinking if you had more questions for us, and maybe we'll have a time for a demo. But before that, I wanted to get some quick feedback from all of y'all just about community calls and how we're doing with them and how we can sort of make them better. We've gotten mixed feedback around community calls in the past, and feel like we're kind of in a rhythm with them, which is probably a good time to sort of reevaluate if we're making the most use of them, if we can improve them, if we're sort of aligning with our goals. So I sort of asked myself and asked the PMs the question of what is the purpose of the community call and how does it align with our values and purpose for PowerShell all up. So some of the answers that we came up with for the purpose or goals of the community call were to encourage dialogue and questions from the community, to build connection between our open source community and PowerShell team, to share with contributors news about the projects, share new work, and allow community members to share their work and demos. We felt like the community call is specifically targeted to our open source community, and aligns with our open source values of transparency and community, and connects to our themes of engineering for agility and welcoming diverse new users. But I'd love to hear from any of y'all, whether it's now, later on, in the chat, raise a hand if there are things that you think we're missing out in the community call, we're focusing too much, too little on, or if you have a different view of sort of what a community call is about or what we should be doing. We're really open to hearing that feedback. One other piece of feedback that we have gotten to is that folks have different preferences for cadence of community calls. So we've heard some folks would like to have it less often. However, totally happy to stick with the monthly cadence. I love the monthly cadence because I just know the third Thursday of every month, it's gonna be happening. It's very predictable. But would love to hear if folks have differing opinions. Mike, I think I saw that you had your hand raised if you had something you wanted to add here.
Hey everyone. I just had an idea. So I generally love the community call. I think it's great. Um, the one thing I never thought of until you asked about this, and it happened today in the chat, was as a community organizer for user groups and events, the community has always struggled for a way to evangelize sort of what's going on in the community. And today we had a little bit of like, thanks for coming to the summit. Did you realize there's an event coming up next month and there's PowerShell on the river? So maybe, I don't know that we need to chat about it, but maybe there's a way that we could just highlight some things that are happening in the near term in the community as more of a community minded event, call, right? So um, it's a struggle I've always had as a user group organizer. Nobody seems to have one place to go to find out what the hell is going on in our community. So maybe we could just evangelize a little bit or talk about some places people can go elsewhere in the community to keep up on the event.
Yeah, I think that that's really excellent feedback. And as Sean mentioned, yeah, definitely feel free to add it to the issue each month, but also you can bring it up during the call. And I think it's great to share what folks are doing, especially because so many folks on this call are not only attendees of sort of community organizing events, but also are organizers of the events. So having ability for y'all to connect and kind of share what you're doing.
Yeah, my group, everybody seems to know about my group, and it's very easy for me to talk about my group, but the group leads in my group, are trying to highlight some of the other events that are happening in the community so that we just don't get all the love.
Mm-hmm.
There's other groups that are trying to get off the ground and nobody knows about them. So I'll see if I can figure out something with Sean. Maybe we can publish something somewhere. We'll kick around some ideas. But
Cool.
let me just ask to add on to that. It would be okay from y'all standpoint if people just pasted things in the chat. Hey, everybody, this is this event happening. Even if we don't talk about it, people could just see a link to an event. That'd be fine.
Absolutely. So I'll just say, like, the only thing we would not want to see is like advertisements for paid stuff. Now, I mean,
Sure.
like, if it's a conference where that requires a fee, that's different. But I'm talking about, like, we don't want this to turn into an advertising platform for like software, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
But like for example, there's a podcast feed that's taken off in the last 2 months that maybe people don't even know about. It's been happening with Andrew Pla. Local community events around user groups that are trying to get some people to show up, or like you guys mentioned, PSConf EU or the upcoming PowerShell on the river, just to say, hey, people, did you know these things are happening? And just awareness.
Yep. I
Yeah,
love it.
I think that that's great. And I see some folks also commenting about the community Discord and Slack. And so I think maybe those are both awesome. Like the community call and Discord are both awesome places to publicize that. And maybe even I can take a pass through the announcements channel, the Discord kind of monthly, and just see if there's things that we want to make sure get mentioned during this call.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate the engagement. There's a lot of comments, so I'm just gonna pause and I'm sort of like scanning through the chat right now.
Yeah, let me. So I think a Get PowerShell event, obviously it have to be singular, to follow the PowerShell model. It's kind of interesting, especially if it can be fed through a GitHub repo and the community just updates or submits PRs to that repo, so it's managed by the community. That could be an interesting thing we could think about.
Yeah, so James Petty had made a PowerShell community calendar on PowerShell.org. It's a plugin for a website. We've had varying degrees of success with that. What he's basically doing is pulling in RSS feeds for user groups and events, but there's just not that many people publishing data in the community, so the calendar looks kind of empty. I don't know how successful we've been with that. I kind of like this commandlet idea. It might be interesting.
Yeah, something more semi-official might drum up more participation. Well, we'll talk about it on our side and see. Not promising anything right now.
Awesome. I'm seeing Keith also mentioned that on some other community calls, they spend a bit of time talking about significant community contributions. And I think that that's a great idea as well. And sort of transitions into also community demos. So want to make sure that folks are aware that that's an opportunity as well. If you do have something you are excited about that you want to show that you've done with PowerShell. Awesome. I don't want to take up all the time too for our own feedback, but like, please feel free to keep having this conversation. I want to see though, if also folks had other questions for us that they wanted to, or topics they wanted to cover during this community call. If there was something that you posted already in the chat too, I think we answered most of the questions as we went along, but feel free to repost your question if you feel like it didn't really get answered. And also love the hand raise feature. So if you'd love to come off mute, do feel free to do that as well.
Just a quick one, Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is anybody experienced any problems with the latest PowerShell extension for VS Code?
The latest PowerShell and the latest PowerShell extension for VS Code, is that what the question is? Experiencing issues with that?
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't get it to load at all.
Was that like just the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just,
The
Yeah, so
preview
Alan,
is currently experiencing that issue. You're not the
that
only one
was
working on
today.
it.
I don't know if Alan's breaking up for anybody else but me.
Okay, no, I might be just dropped into some dead zone in terms of.
There you go. That's
Oh, you're much
nice.
better now.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, no, that's fine as long as it's not me. I was beginning to think.
Not just you.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
speak of the devil appears. I'll let Andy field that.
That is the code on my screen right now, trying to figure out what's going on there.
So it's known, being worked on. I think last I heard from Andy, there may have been some changes from VS Code itself that broke us. So it's being
Look at
investigated.
what you can do though is you can go into VS Code, you can go to the extension, you can right click it and choose install previous version and quickly go back to any version before you're having the problem and get working again until that gets sorted.
The stable extension should be fine. Nobody's reported issues there. It's just the preview that we're having issues with, which is why it's preview. So just swap over to the stable until we've got it sorted out.
No worries. Steve, I know you noticed it as well, but that extension for Merrill I think it needs a bit more publicity because I think a lot of people, particularly on here, will find it quite cool in terms of being able to see what's going on in the Azure portal, Azure AD, in terms of exporting your stuff as scripts when it does graph calls. You know, the Merrill's add-on, that extension add-on.
So I think this is where I can definitely try to reach out to some folks to see if they can join the call and present it themselves. Like it's just hard for the size of our team to do that on behalf of other folks.
Okay, fair enough. It was more just to raise the awareness that it's out there for people to give it a spin because it's quite cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking for feedback about it. So.
Yep. Do we want to give Justin some time here? Or?
Yeah, Justin, do you want to do a demo you have in 7 minutes, or do you want to save it for next time?
I can do a demo. That's fine. I need to be given presenter rights, so.
Oh, yes. Let me one.
Alrighty, thank you.
Cool.
Get this up here. So one thing I just want to show real quick is you have your typical PowerShell. We got our new PowerShell extension here. And if you kill your PowerShell, you'll notice you get a new message now. That's just a little more descriptive. You know, rather than say it's terminated, some people don't like that term because sometimes they just want to close it. So we just say that it's stopped. We just kind of remind them that, hey, you know, you can close this, but if you do, it's going to break your IntelliSense. Like IntelliSense is not going to work. So that was just something that came up in a Discord conversation, and somebody was like, "Hey, can we get this message changed? It kind of bothers me, and it's just like doesn't seem like it's really clear what it needs to be." And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." So the way that I made that pull request is to simply go to let's go to VS Code -PowerShell. And in here is a pull request where I just go to my closed here, and it's right here, update message to be more concise. So all I did was go to this file. I didn't even have to leave GitHub. Did this all in my browser. Didn't have to know any coding experience or anything. I just went and found where the error message was. There was a little edit button here, and I just clicked that and then fixed the message. And then all I had to do was then say, do you want to make this a PR? Sure. I mentioned that, linked to the issue that it points to about the guy saying, he had an issue with it. And that was it. And Andy looked at it, he said, looks good, got approved. And now my message is in the PowerShell extension. I just wanted to show as a quick example, we talk a lot about like, you don't have to be a programmer to contribute to the PowerShell community. Like there's a message that doesn't make sense or could be more helpful or documentation, anything like that. If you can find the message, and I just found it by searching the specific message up here in the search box and found it and then just clicked edit. That's as easy as it can be to be a PR and be part of the open source community. You don't have to know Git, you don't have to know GitHub, you don't have to know any of that. So I just wanted to show that as a quick example. So one other thing I want to show is a module I've been working on.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. Just an example, like there's a real world example, the docs team talks about it and there's lots of great information on it. If you ever want to know any more about it, hit me on Twitter, hit me up on the Discord. I'll be happy to walk you through it if there's like a message you've always wanted to fix, and not just in, the extension, but in PowerShell or any project really. So another thing I'm going to show is a module I've been working on that solves an annoyance that I had. Most of my modules start this way. If you're not familiar with Azure Privileged Identity Management, this is basically like sort of like a pseudo roles kind of thing for Azure. What it lets you do is it lets your normal account basically have no rights, but you can be assigned these rights in such a way that you have to go in and activate them for a specific time. So you have these just-in-time accounts that you can have, or for my roles, for instance, on my test account here, I'm an application developer, user administrator for a particular administrative unit. Sorry, I dropped out there for a second. You still got me?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So, get reconnected here. And so for your roles, you can activate them. And so, day to day for my work, this is my test account, but for my work, like I have to activate these roles typically like once a day or even like once per change request, where I'll activate the role just for the change request. Example, take this one. I got to wait on this, wait for it to load, put in my duration, reason, making a fun change, activate. Then I got to sit here and wait for this. And it does that step, kind of waits for it to validate, etc. This gets really tedious. It's like, it's fine, but man, this takes forever. And when you're making changes all the time and you got to activate and deactivate, it's a real pain. So the first thing I did was go to the Azure modules and the Microsoft Graph commands and found the way to do this. And so a lot of this is fairly new, the API changes. The commands are extremely obtuse. So if I went to, I even so obtuse that I had to write myself a document to remind me what all this stuff means and how it translates to the PIM module. So what I decided to do was like, this needs to be easier. So I just made myself a PowerShell module to process this. So you can find it with find PS resource, because of course you're using PowerShell Git version 3 and you're testing it for Sydney. It's very important. You can find it here. It's version 008, for instance. And once you install it, you can import it. And so now if I look, and this command fully supports help. So if I look at my, so there's my function. So I got all these functions for just enabling roles, disabling roles, and waiting on roles. So this command supports all the help. So if we do like enable JZ role, I can hit F1 on my keyboard and get my nice little help with all my detail. Okay, what does this command do? All the details, bunch of examples, great. So what I can do now is rather than go through that UI that I showed you, I can just do git JZAD role. And here's all those same roles that you saw earlier, but at the PowerShell level. And this has a custom type formatter, so it looks very similar to what the UI is. So anybody who's used to doing the UI, this is going to look really similar. And it also has tab complete. So if I do enable role, I can hit tab, it'll let me know it's fetching. And I can just tab and select very quickly what role I need to do something with. It supports what if, of course. So if I do dash what if, it's going to let me know exactly what it's going to do. It's going to activate the role for this scope from this time to that time. If I want it to be longer than that, if I want to set it to 8 hours, I can do that. If I want it to start at a specific time, if I need to enter a ticket, but if I also want to start at a specific time, I can say not before and then also until. So lots of different options to be able to kind of specify this particular thing, everything you can do in the GUI. So I'll go ahead and run it here. And what it's going to do is that it's going to pop up an error here. my policy requires PIM. So it also has custom messages saying rather than this default, like you did not match the just role parameter, I made something that's a little more specific message that, and even gives you a little role hint that says, hey, you should use the justification parameter for this. So I'll go ahead and do this and just do dash, we'll go ahead and add my justification and we'll do verbose and we'll see the verbose shows the same as what we got with the what if. And there's my role in the process of being provisioned. So at this step, it's in being provisioned, but sometimes it takes like 10 to 15 seconds for it to show up. So one thing that we can do is we can get the roles and we can enable them. And what we can do is then we also have another command. We can either do dash wait here in order to wait on it there, or we can pipe it to the special wait commandlet. And this is the part that I'm pretty proud of, is we're going to go here. It's going to go through and go ahead and get them all started.